To ace your sales interview, your future employer needs to see your sales ability in action before, during, and after. So let's get ready for what might be the most important sale of your career, your interview. As you now know, your ability to sell yourself during a sales interview is a direct display of your technical ability to be successful in the role. In other words, during a sales interview, your sales skills will be evaluated on your ability to sell yourself throughout the entire interview process. That's why it's critical to employ all three steps of the InterviewACE format: attitude, connection, and evidence. In this session, we'll focus on evidence. In our previous sessions together, we discussed the importance of having a top sales professional's attitude and being prepared for anything that can happen throughout the process. We also went into depth on your responsibility to clearly make the connection of how your previous experience will help you be successful in this role. Now here's the fun part. In every step you make, you have to provide evidence through your performance that you actually know how to sell. And you guessed it, you have to do this before, during, and after the interview. Let's start at the beginning, providing evidence before the sales interview. We've discussed the importance of researching the key players and the job description. Now let's take that information and put it to use the way a top sales professional would when researching a prospect. That way you can stand out above the competition. One great way to do this is to send a pre-thank you note. Yes, a pre-thank you note. I know what you're thinking, but Ben, people don't send pre-thank you notes. And that is exactly why top candidates do. You see, when you're interviewing with a company for the first time, you're an unknown, just like all the other candidates, which means the only thing the hiring manager has to go by is your past behaviors. And normally that information is all hearsay based on your resume, based on what you tell them, and best case scenario, based on someone who may have referred you to the hiring manager. But when you start putting your skills into action, you're demonstrating that you can be successful in the role. And what better time to start proving your ability than before you ever even meet your interviewer? Now, of course, your letter has to be good, so make it personal and base it on the research you did on the people you're meeting with, as well as the senior team. Everyone loves talking about themselves, so consider focusing on something you found inspirational about the company and/or the recipient of the letter. And be sure to proofread your letter carefully and customize the letter for each person, as I guarantee the letter will be shared around the office and people will be talking about you, which is exactly what you want. Let's move on to providing evidence during the interview. First, it's important to make sure you display an executive presence, as discussed in our previous sessions. Next, you'll want to leverage one of your most powerful tools in sales, and also in interviews: questions. That means you'll need to be prepared to answer questions like a top sales professional and also be prepared to ask questions like a top sales professional. Let's dig in a little deeper here. First, you'll want to be prepared to ask open-ended questions throughout the dialogue, not just at the end. Unlike traditional interviews where the interviewer might ask most of the questions, in a sales interview, you must show that you know how to volley control back and forth while still making sure everyone in the room feels comfortable. Now, it is still an interview, so it's okay if you're not asking most of the questions. Just don't sit there like a bump on a log. Along with being good at asking questions comes being good at listening to responses. So be sure to bring a professional pad of paper and a pen with you to take notes. Oh, and actually do take notes. That way you'll have accurate information for your thank you card, your follow-up, and for that second interview you know you're going to get. And lastly, be sure to display welcoming body language and eye contact. Lean forward with open hands on a table or on your portfolio. Don't keep your hands under the table, and no matter what, never sit on them. And of course, maintain comfortable eye contact with everyone in the room and subtly mirror your interviewer's body language. Next, let's talk about two specific types of interview questions you're likely going to be asked: behavioral event and contrary evidence interview questions. While there are other types of questions you'll likely get asked, these are the ones that most candidates mess up on. Behavioral event questions are interview questions in which the applicant is asked to describe a specific, real-life example in order to determine whether she is suitable for a position. Typically, these questions are centered around a time when you succeeded at a specific type of activity. And contrary evidence questions are probing or follow-up questions to those standard behavioral event questions that typically ask for examples of behavior that is different or opposite from the behavior already described. Typically, these questions are centered around a time when you failed at a specific type of activity. These questions are often asked to see what you've learned from the outcome of that failure. The key for both of these types of questions is that you share an actual example of something you actually did, not a hypothetical. That's really important. We'll cover the details on what to do and what not to do when answering these types of questions in our breakout session. But for now, just know that these questions pretty much always start with, "Tell me about a time when you," and the interviewer will go on from there. Also, be sure to review the list of all types of common interview questions provided with this session so you're aware of them and so you can prepare for them. You know this, so it's important to display this. Here's a quick rundown of the 3 types of interview questions you should prepare ahead of time and some examples of each. Position-related questions. For example, what would you say are the most important attributes needed to be successful in this position? Or, in your opinion, what have others done wrong in this position that caused them to fail? Next, we have company or career opportunity related questions. For example, after a few years of success in this role, what might be my growth opportunities within the company? It's a great way to show that you have long-term plans for this company. Next, what are the company's biggest opportunities or biggest challenges? And finally, interview-related questions, starting with one of the most powerful questions you should ask towards the end of every interview. Do you have any concerns about my ability to succeed in this role? This question is a great sales interview question because it shows that you are able to ask for the close, and it gives you the opportunity to address any concerns the interviewer may have right there in the interview. As always, it's best to have as much information as possible so you can control the outcome of your sale. Additionally, other interview-related questions to ask include, how would you prefer I follow up on the status of the position? And also, be sure to ask for her card so you're not hunting for their contact information later, which will help you with the follow-up. Now, here's the thing about asking questions. No matter what, when the interviewer asks if you have any questions, you always want to ask questions at that time, even if the interviewer truly answered all the questions you had prepared. Be sure to use this time to probe further and ask follow-up questions that will provide additional detail on some of the more important topics. Now, if you haven't already, review the sample questions to ask during an interview worksheet provided with this session. Moving on to providing evidence after the interview. Now, hang in there, this is our last step. Within about 30 minutes to an hour of your interview, you'll want to send a thank you email. Here are the topics you should cover. Thank you for taking the time to, I'm the person for the role because, and here's the additional information you requested. Additionally, on the same day of the interview, you'll want to mail a handwritten note on professional stationery. Remember, you've already written out the envelope, so that step is out of the way. Refer back to the key points you learned during the interview to structure the note. And it's also okay to cover some of the thank you email topics in more depth if needed. Finally, follow the follow-up instructions. Did she say phone calls were the best way to follow up? Maybe emails? How soon did she say she would have a decision? Just like in a real sale, your goal is to be persistent without stalking. As you can see, there are a lot of complex steps to providing evidence of your sales ability before, during, and after the interview. The good news is, with just a little preparation, you are on your way to landing the job of your dreams. Okay, stop dreaming and start preparing for your interview. I'll see you in the next session.